Hi, my name is Andrea Keys, and I had the privilege of observing my 14-year-old sister. I observed her at her home, at a restaurant, and at the mall. And I watched her interact with her parents, her cousin, a server, my boyfriend, and myself. The most significant events were probably her self-criticism, her use of the habits of the mind, which was more specifically her managing impulsivity, and her use of past knowledge. And then lastly, the another significant thing that I observed was the theory of zone of proximal development by Vykosky's theory, and how her cognitive processes have most definitely been scaffolded and molded based off of the opinions of her parents, who are also my parents. So more specifically, her self-criticism was her really demonstrating a lot of self-hatred and self-criticism towards her body, and her obsession with needing to be popular, needing to be cool, part of the in crowd. Social status is a very important thing for her. So this is something we would expect to see from a 14-year-old girl. We're expecting to see them be really critical of themselves, turning to friends for opinions. So it wasn't out of the norm to see this. However, it was interesting to see how well she fit into what we would expect from her age group, and how she's really staying true to that expectation. Additionally, her use of habits of the mind was a very interesting thing to experience. She was able to manage her impulsivity and apply past knowledge when she was in an argument with our father. And whereas normally I would have expected her to be very upset, lash out, since he was assuming that she wasn't being responsible, for her to, point out to him in a very, bratty and disrespectful way that he was wrong and he was incorrect. However, she was able to take that anger and somehow manage to speak to him calmly, explain to him exactly, that she had taken care of things, that there's nothing to worry about, and also that she was able to use that past knowledge, knowing that in the past she probably would have lashed out at him, and instead of lashing out, because she knows that was never effective for her, that being able to be calm in that situation actually worked to her benefit. So managing her impulsivity was to her benefit in that situation, because it ended up ending very well, and my father was pleased with her responsible decisions. And then for zone of proximal development, my sister was very, very, how do I say it? Very uncomfortable with me spending money on her. My boyfriend and I took her out to eat, and she was very uncomfortable with us spending money on dinner, and then following up with going to the mall. She was very uncomfortable with that as well. And this became obvious to me that this was something that's been molded into her cognitive process and her scaffolded by her parents, my parents, because when I went home to when Rachel was, my sister, when my sister was showing her my stepmom her clothes, my stepmom looked at me and said, "Please tell me you didn't spend a lot of money on her." Which I had to say, well, it was her birthday. She deserves to have money spent on her for special occasions. But that showed me that this has been implemented into my sister's cognitive process, that spending a lot of money, even for special occasions, is never okay. And that just shows that this has affected her at a deeper cognitive level than I was expecting. So what I learned about her cognitive and social development, firstly, for cognitive development, I learned, as I just mentioned, how true the zone of proximal development theory is. that she, you know, based off all the things that my parents have said to her in the past, she now has a certain way of thinking, and that way of thinking has been ingrained in her head because that's all that she's observed is being frugal with money, not spending a lot of money. Even if it's your birthday, don't spend more than $200 on clothes because that's not okay. So I saw how that was implemented, that theory had been implemented in my sister. So this teaches me that I need to be more open-minded. I need to be less biased, less opinionated, and allow the opinions of others to be welcomed, because if not, children, my students, my future clients, whoever it may be less likely to be able to mold themselves and to understand that it's okay to do certain things at certain times, or that it's okay to spend money when it's a birthday. What I learned about her social development was that how sociocultural interactions and development have truly affected her. So, in regards to social media, being very critical of body image. So what this shows me is that I'm going to need to be more outwardly positive with my body image. I also suffer from being very critical of my body, but in order to show young girls and boys that it's okay to love ourselves no matter what we look like, I'm going to need to implement that in my outward, statements. So lastly, I know I'm running out of time. Tips would be to listen. So for this age group, I would advise people to listen. This age group, they have a lot to share. Their cognitive abilities are, very, very developed at this point, and they have a lot to talk about. So just listen, and they will tell you a lot of what you want to hear or what you may not want to hear as well. Also be positive. They're dealing with a lot of negative things at this age, and being really self-critical and all these things. So being positive is really important for this age group. And lastly, be a safe place. They need you to do that in order for them to be able to open up to you. As we learned, it is really important to be a safe place for these kids, because they're learning to trust you. They're learning to understand themselves, and if you are a safe place, they'll be able to express that with you. So that's all I have to say. I know I'm a little bit over in my time, so I hope that's okay. But that is my presentation on my observation of a youth. Thank you very much.